welcome to this, the third window of the 2021 TooFatLardies Advent Calendar. I hope you're really enjoying these entries as we go through December. And here's the next one, which is Richard, talking about the TooFatLardies Fire Table and the inspiration behind its addition into the TooFatLardies stable of rule sets. Take it away, Rich.
The big bang moment when the two insignificant particles that are Nick and I collided in the Lardy Hadron Collider of life was a Vietnam game that we played, and it must be about 20 years ago, because the first archaeological evidence we have for TooFatLardies existing, because we didn't make a note at the time because it didn't seem particularly important, was an article called I Love the Smell of Kriegspiel in the Morning that was published in War Games Illustrated magazine 20 years ago next month, January 2001. And that was talking about the design process for a set of rules that were at the time called DMZ, and then pretty rapidly became Charlie Don't Surf, and gosh, only took 10 years before they got published, and also rapidly became I Ain't Been Shot Mum as well. That really is the first point when we can date TooFatLardies from. But what had happened was we got together in order to play a set of rules that we'd played in the early 80s, Vietnam rules that we'd really enjoyed, and we put them on the table, having not played them for maybe 10 years. And we just really found ourselves not enjoying it. It wasn't the rules that had changed, it was us. It was really what our expectations were from a game. And we kind of abandoned playing the game and ended up having a discussion, blue skies thinking, to use a sort of modern terminology, about what ideas and concepts that we'd really like to see in a set of rules. And some ideas came out that we tossed in the hat and agreed to give it a go. Nick suggested a card-driven system, to my horror, actually. I thought it was a ridiculous idea. But clearly my opinion was changed on that. One of us wanted to have a focus on leadership. I can't remember who. It was possibly Nick, because he's a big John Wayne fan, so the term big man sounds very much like a John Wayneism, so could well have come from him. But the idea of those leaders on the table who were stepping up and playing their role that you not only see in the films, but also read about in any first-hand historical account of pretty much warfare in any period in history. I suggested the fire table. Now, it wasn't something I'd completely made up. It was actually taking the concept out of von Riesewitz's 1824 Kriegspiel rules. And he introduced a very, very simple system where you basically had two columns, one for poor effect and one for good effect. You rolled your dice and you read off against that to see what the effect of firing would be. Now, the appeal of that for me was that one of the design things that was most important in my mind was minimum contact with the rules. So every time you had to make contact with the rules, you wanted to minimise that, but you wanted to get the maximum you could out of that situation. So my feeling was influenced by listening to a program on the radio about golf, of all things. And it was talking about how golfers walk up to a ball 6 foot from the hole, about to make their putt. Then they start getting their golf club out and waving it about and assessing angles and looking at the run of the green and so on and so forth. And basically the program said it's not necessary. Your brain is already such a perfect tool that when you as a golfer walk up, look at the ball, look at the hole, your brain's already done those calculations for you. What you should really do is just walk up, address the ball, and make the shot. And I thought, well, really, that's not unlike any situation on a war games table you can have. Now, I did accept the fact that Reiswitz might have been a bit mean in saying it's got to be a great shot or a poor shot. So I thought, well, we can put an okay shot in the middle, and that's pretty much going to cover any situation that you're going to get on the table without the need for looking at a huge number of tables. I'm shooting at that unit over there in cover. There's a bit of smoke in between. Well, it's probably a poor shot then, isn't it? But if those guys run out of that building and run across the open ground, there's still a bit of smoke, so it's an okay shot. And if that smoke has blown away, well, it's probably going to be a great shot. And I just thought, well, that's pretty much reads like any situation you're ever going to get in an action. So you can do away with all those +1s and -1s. And the other thing I really wanted to do in terms of getting the maximum result out of the table was to have a result whereby all you did was you rolled your dice and then you looked up the number you'd rolled and cross-referenced it with your column, poor, okay, or good. And that would give you not only the number of hits on the unit, but also give you a morale effect. So was that unit okay to carry on moving as normal, or was it pinned temporarily, or was it suppressed, whereby, it can't move and can't fire? So the table was there very much to give a maximum result out of one point of contact with the rules. It was interesting, actually. We used it in IABSM and we used it in Charlie Don't Surf, but the reaction was not 100% positive. I was dying out on the feedback we got on one wargaming website saying anybody who likes TooFatLardies rules must be into free love and mind-bending drugs. Which actually we really loved that. We loved that because the fact that people could be asked to say anything at all was far more than we'd ever expected. But more importantly, it kind of made us feel that we were challenging the comfortable norm, and that's never a bad thing to be doing. There's that you don't. It's not good to simply do things the way they've always been done just because they've always done it. So there we are. We introduced the fire table to our rule sets. Actually, it kind of happened at the time when there was starting to be a reaction to tables generally. People saying, I don't really want tables in rule sets. I want to minimise that. And fair enough. Tables are actually a very efficient way of giving information, presenting information. And it's also a really handy thing to have on the back cover of Charlie Don't Surf or I Ain't Been Shot Man, because there's your ready-made play sheet right there to hand. That's the thing you're going to be looking at more than anything else. But it was a stage in our development. We tended to move on to look at D6s and trying to find results where you don't need to look them up. You know that if you're shooting at long range, you're going to be hitting on 5 and 6, and if you're shooting at shorter range, you're going to be hitting 4, 5, or 6. That type of thing where those numbers are constant and consequently don't need looking up. And that was the very beginning of TooFatLardies, and the fire table was in there. The inspiration really for that came from a series of articles in Miniature Wargames magazine, which had been fairly recently set up by Duncan McFarlane, going back into the mid-80s. And he'd had a series of articles in there called Rules on the Back of a Postcard, really getting people to come forward and putting the emphasis on fun and game mechanisms that are simple but produced a good game. Very much the antidote to the heavy-duty types of rule sets that have been dominating the hobby for so long. And I think in many respects, whatever I have achieved, small total that I've achieved in my life, and Duncan McFarlane was the man who influenced my wargaming life more than anybody else. And, whatever small achievements I've got to my name, they are entirely due to my standing on the shoulders of that particularly charming and immensely understated giant of the hobby.